It was still dark outside when Daniel Harper's eyes fluttered open. He wasn't sure why he'd woken up. The room was silent, the curtains drawn, and the faint hum of the heater was the only sound in the air. But something felt different. He rolled over and glanced at the clock on his nightstand. 5:42 a.m. Daniel frowned. His alarm was set for 7 a.m., not 5:42. And yet, as he stared at the glowing red numbers, a faint beeping started, soft at first, then louder, like an old digital watch alarm. He didn't own a digital watch. Sitting up, he scanned the room. On the dresser, tucked between a stack of books, was an alarm clock he'd never seen before. It was black, rectangular, the kind you might find in a cheap motel, but it looked wrong. The numbers were too sharp, too bright, almost burning into the dark. 5:43. Daniel got up and picked it up, feeling its cold, almost metallic surface. There was no brand name. No buttons. No plug. Just the screen, and a single phrase glowing faintly beneath the time. Wake up before 6 a.m. He laughed nervously, convinced it was some kind of prank. But when he turned the clock over, the back was completely sealed. No battery slot. No screws. And that was when he noticed something else. The second hand wasn't ticking. The numbers were frozen. He blinked, and suddenly the time jumped to 5:44. It wasn't counting seconds. It was skipping. A strange chill ran down his spine. He set it back down and crawled into bed, telling himself he'd deal with it later. But just as he closed his eyes, the beeping returned, louder, sharper, like it was right beside his ear. 5:45, and this time, a new line of text appeared under the first. Or you won't wake up at all. The next morning, Daniel awoke at 7:15 a.m., groggy, disoriented, and with a pounding headache. The strange clock was gone. He searched the entire bedroom, even under the bed, but it had vanished without a trace. He tried to shake it off, convincing himself it had just been a vivid dream. But at work, little things kept gnawing at him. His computer froze at 5:59 p.m., exactly 1 minute before 6. A coworker casually mentioned waking up before 6 o'clock that morning because it felt safer. And while grabbing coffee, the barista's receipt printer jammed, leaving a timestamp of 5:59 a.m. burned into the paper. That night, Daniel lay in bed staring at his real alarm clock, waiting for sleep to come. But at 5:41 a.m., he woke again, and the strange black clock was sitting right where it had been before. 5:42. No sound. No beeping. Just the glowing warning, wake up before 6 a.m. Daniel grabbed it, heart pounding. Who put this here? He shouted into the empty room. The clock didn't answer. It simply skipped to 5:43. For the next 17 minutes, Daniel sat frozen, clutching the clock, watching the numbers jump, 5:44, 5:45, 5:46, until they reached 5:59. The air grew heavier, like the room itself was holding its breath. Then, for the first time, the clock made a sound, not a beep, but a whisper. Soft. Almost human. Don't fall asleep. Daniel didn't tell anyone. Not at first. Who would believe him? A mysterious clock appearing in his bedroom, warning him to wake before 6. It sounded insane. But on the third night, something changed. He woke at 5:40 to find the clock glowing brighter than ever, so bright it lit the whole room in an eerie red glow. This time, the numbers moved faster. 5:41, 5:42, 5:43, skipping seconds like the end was rushing toward him. And when it hit 5:50, he noticed movement in the shadows by his closet. At first, it was just a faint outline, something tall, hunched, swaying ever so slightly. No face. No features. Just, watching. Daniel's mouth went dry. He blinked, and it was closer. 5:53, the air felt electric, buzzing against his skin. His instincts screamed to run, but his body wouldn't move. 5:55, the shadow stretched toward him, arm-like shapes reaching. The clock pulsed with each jump in time. 5:58, the whisper returned, right beside his ear this time. If you sleep past 6, you'll never wake again. The next moment, the clock flashed 5:59, and the lights in the room went out. The next morning, Daniel sat in the corner booth of a quiet diner, his coffee growing cold. He hadn't planned to come here, but after what happened at 5:59, he couldn't bear to be alone in his apartment. He kept replaying the night over in his head, the shadow, the voice, the way the air felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. He was staring at his untouched toast when someone slid into the seat across from him. It was a man in his late 50s, wearing a worn brown coat and a faded baseball cap. His eyes were sharp, alert, but there was a tiredness in them that Daniel recognized instantly, the kind that comes from carrying a secret too long. "You've seen it, haven't you?" the man said quietly. Daniel frowned. "Seen what?" The stranger leaned forward. "The clock." Daniel froze. His heart skipped. He hadn't told anyone. "I don't know what you're talking about." The man gave a humorless smile. "You can lie to yourself, but it won't help you. Once it finds you, it doesn't let go." Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. "What is it?" The man's expression darkened. "Not what. When." Before Daniel could press for more, the man slid a small envelope across the table. "You're running out of mornings, Harper. The sooner you understand, the better your chances." Daniel looked down. Inside the envelope was a Polaroid photo, of a black clock on a nightstand, glowing 5:59 a.m. And in the blurry background, a shadow stretching toward the photographer. Daniel couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that Polaroid, the faint outline of the shadow, the way it seemed to move even in stillness. By 2 a.m., he was at his desk, scouring the internet. Mysterious clock warnings, wake before 6 or die, time-based curse, page after page of nothing but urban legends and creepypasta stories. He almost gave up, until he stumbled across an obscure discussion forum from 2012. The thread was titled, "Anyone else getting the 6 a.m. visits?" There were only 8 posts before the thread was locked. The first post described a man waking at 5:42 to find a strange clock that wasn't his. The second post, from a woman, claimed she ignored it, overslept, and woke up in the hospital with no memory of the previous night. The last post, dated September 4, 2012, simply read, "It's in my room right now. 5:58, if I don't post again, don't let it find you." No one ever replied. Daniel leaned back, the words blurring. He had proof now, other people had experienced this. But if that was true, why were there so few stories? The answer was obvious. Most of them didn't survive to tell it. That night, Daniel tried to prepare. He set his phone alarm for 5:30, made coffee in advance, and even left his apartment lights on. But at 5:41, he woke to total darkness. The power was out. And the clock was there. 5:42. Its glow was brighter than ever, painting the room in crimson light. The warning words pulsed beneath the time, each flash quickening Daniel's heartbeat. 5:43. He stood, forcing himself to move. "You're not real. You're not real." 5:44. From the hallway came a soft scraping sound, like something dragging across the floor. 5:45. It grew louder, closer. A slow, deliberate pace, as if whatever was coming wasn't in a hurry because it knew he couldn't escape. 5:46. The whisper came again, but this time it wasn't a single voice, it was many. Layered. Urgent. "Don't close your eyes." Daniel's hands shook as he backed toward the kitchen. The scraping sound stopped. The silence was worse. 5:48, the clock was now on the counter in front of him, though he hadn't brought it there. 5:49. The whispering turned into a low, resonant hum. He felt it in his chest, in his teeth, like it was rattling his bones. 5:50. From the corner of his eye, something shifted, tall, narrow, moving along the wall without touching it. The air temperature dropped. His breath came out in white puffs. 5:53, he could barely stand. His knees trembled, his vision blurred. Every instinct screamed to run, but run where? 5:55. The hum rose to a deafening pitch. The shadow stopped moving and turned, no face, no eyes, yet Daniel felt it looking straight at him. 5:57, the clock's glow was blinding now, the numbers searing into his vision. 5:58. The voices merged into one final, echoing command. Wake up before 6. The next second, he was standing in the middle of his kitchen, coffee cold, lights on, heart racing. It was 4:15 a.m. The following day, Daniel couldn't shake the sensation that he was being watched. At work, he caught himself glancing over his shoulder every few minutes. On the train home, he saw the same man in a dark coat sitting 3 rows behind him, even though he had boarded at a different stop. By evening, his nerves were raw. He decided to take a walk through Maplewood Park to clear his head. The winter air bit at his face, but the quiet pathways gave him a strange sense of calm. Until he saw him. The man from the diner, the one who gave him the Polaroid. He was sitting on a bench under the bare branches of an old elm tree. You didn't open the envelope all the way, did you? The man asked without looking up. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? The man patted the space beside him. Sit. Reluctantly, Daniel did. The man reached into his coat and pulled out another photograph, this one far older. The colors were faded, but Daniel could still make out the shape of a familiar black clock. This photo was taken in 1973, the man said. My father was the one holding the camera. Daniel studied the image. The clock looked identical to the one in his room, same shape, same glowing numbers. Only the time was different. 5:56, Daniel murmured. The man nodded. He didn't make it to 6. Daniel's chest tightened. What happens at 6? The man finally looked at him, his eyes dark, almost hollow. You stop existing in the way you think you do. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Instead, he searched for any trace of the clock in old newspaper archives, library databases, and digitized photo collections. At 2:17 a.m., he found something. An article from 1949, headline. Local family perishes in mysterious circumstances, only clue is a clock. The black and white photo showed the same clock, positioned on a kitchen table. According to the article, the neighbors reported hearing a piercing hum moments before sunrise. By the time anyone entered the home, the family was gone, clothes still warm, food still on the plates, no sign of struggle. Another piece from 1921 described a traveling salesman found unconscious in a boarding house at exactly 6:01 a.m., the strange clock on the nightstand. He awoke 3 days later with no memory, but claimed to hear whispers in the walls every morning since. The deeper Daniel dug, the more the pattern emerged. The clock always appeared around 5:40 a.m., always counted down to 6 o'clock, and always left something missing afterward. Sometimes it was the person. Sometimes, it was part of them. 3 nights later, a winter storm slammed the city. Power outages rolled across neighborhoods, and the streets were deserted under a blanket of snow. Daniel lit candles around his apartment, double-checking his phone alarm. 5:30 a.m. Loudest tone available. But at 5:39, the alarm went dead. His phone screen turned black. The room felt colder. He turned toward the nightstand. The clock was there. 5:40. It glowed so brightly, the red light reflected off the frost on his window. 5:41. A deep rumble shook the apartment, but it wasn't thunder, it was too steady, too deliberate. 5:43, he heard the front door latch click open. He froze. 5:44, the door creaked, and the sound of slow footsteps filled the hall. Snowflakes drifted in on a gust of icy wind, but the steps didn't leave prints on the floor. 5:46, the hum began, low and vibrating through his chest. 5:48, the shadow entered the room, taller now, its edges rippling like it was made of smoke. 5:50, the voices spoke in unison, almost time. 5:53, Daniel backed against the wall, gripping a candle like it could protect him. The air thickened, pressing against his skin. 5:55. The clock's light flared, bathing everything in crimson. 5:57, the shadow reached toward him, not fast, not slow, just inevitable. 5:58, Daniel took a deep breath, heart hammering, ready to move, and the screen went black. The clock was gone. The silence before dawn. Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, the alarm clock glowing 5:11 a.m. The room felt colder than usual, the kind of cold that clings to your bones rather than your skin. He glanced at the door, still slightly ajar, and swore he could hear breathing from the other side. Not his own. Not anyone's he knew. Slow, deliberate breaths. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Every time he tried to focus on the sound, it seemed to fade, until he looked away. Then it was louder. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message. Unknown number. Don't close your eyes. He froze. His heart pounded so loud, it drowned out the breathing. Another message came in. It's not after you tonight. But it's close. Daniel wanted to reply, to demand who this was, but his hands trembled too much to type. Instead, he glanced back at the clock, 5:17 a.m. Somewhere in the hallway, floorboards creaked. By 5:24 a.m., the breathing had stopped. Or maybe Daniel had just stopped hearing it. He was about to stand when a soft knock rattled the half-open door. 3 times. Not hurried. Not threatening. Just, steady. Daniel, a voice whispered. It was the stranger from the cafe. The one who had warned him days ago. Except this time, his voice wasn't calm. It carried the weight of panic. You've got to leave. Right now. Don't wait for 6. Daniel hesitated. What's out there? The man stepped into view, pale, sweating, his coat buttoned wrong, like he'd thrown it on in a hurry. Not what? Who? Before Daniel could ask more, the stranger shoved something into his hands. It was a small envelope, thick with folded papers. Read it before tomorrow, the man said, glancing over his shoulder. And for your own sake, don't follow the light if you see it. Then he was gone. The door swayed silently in his wake. By 5:37 a.m., Daniel sat cross-legged on the bed, the envelope in his lap. The paper inside smelled faintly of smoke and something metallic. He unfolded the first sheet, handwritten in neat, slanted letters. Every morning before 6, it hunts. It moves in the shadows, in reflections, and in the silence between your heartbeats. It doesn't just take lives, it takes the days you would have lived. The clock is not showing the time. It's showing how much is left until it finds it. Daniel's eyes darted to the glowing red digits, 5:38 a.m. 22 minutes left. He flipped to the last page. A single sentence was scrawled in rushed, messy ink. If you see its face, it's already too late. The room seemed to darken, as though the air had thickened. Then, from the corner of his eye, Daniel saw movement in the mirror across the room. Daniel didn't want to look. Every instinct screamed for him to stay perfectly still, pretend he saw nothing, let the moment pass. But curiosity, the dangerous kind, made his eyes flick toward the mirror. At first, he thought it was just his reflection. Then it blinked. Only. Daniel hadn't. His reflection tilted its head, slowly, unnaturally, like a puppet testing its strings. Its mouth curved into a smile Daniel couldn't possibly make. From behind the reflection, something tall and thin emerged, a silhouette without a face, its head brushing the top of the mirror's frame. The digits on the clock by his bed flickered and changed to 5:39 a.m. 1 minute gone. Daniel staggered backward, knocking the lamp off his table. His phone slid to the floor, screen lighting up with an incoming call. No caller ID. He hesitated, then swiped to answer. Static. Then a woman's voice, low, urgent, trembling. Don't let it cross the glass. Once it's in the room, nothing can stop it. Who is this? Daniel whispered. The voice ignored him. It's drawn to the sound of your breathing. Hold it. Don't. The call cut off. The silence that followed was so complete that Daniel could hear the faint hum of the clock's numbers changing, 5:40 a.m. The mirror's surface began to ripple, like water disturbed by a drop. The faceless shape leaned closer, pressing a hand against the glass from the other side. A sound followed, a long, deliberate scratch, as if nails were carving lines across the surface. The glass didn't crack. It bent inward. Daniel's lungs burned from holding his breath. He could feel the thing listening, waiting for him to exhale. And then, without meaning to, he gasped. The figure's head snapped toward him in a blur. The scratching grew faster, harder, until a hairline fracture spread across the mirror. The clock on his nightstand flickered again, 5:41 a.m. The crack in the mirror spread like a vein of lightning across the glass. Daniel's chest rose and fell too quickly, every breath louder than he wanted it to be. The figure leaned against the fracture, pressing with a strength that made the glass bow outward as if it were soft, pliable. He stumbled backward until his heel struck the edge of his bed. His phone lay on the floor where it had fallen, its screen black now. Dead. He bent to grab it, but as his fingers brushed the device, the mirror groaned, a deep, guttural sound like stone grinding against stone. The digits on the clock beside him flickered again. 5:42 a.m. The reflection's eyes, or the hollow where eyes should have been, seemed to turn toward the numbers. As if it knew exactly how much time remained. Then the voice returned. Not through the phone. Not through any speaker. It came from everywhere, the walls, the air, inside his chest. Do not let it take your breath, Daniel. Once it does, you'll never breathe again. Daniel's knees buckled. He pressed his palms against his face, muffling his ragged breathing. His lungs screamed for air, but if he gasped again, he knew, it would hear him. The glass cracked again. A pale hand, long-fingered, pushed through. The tips weren't nails. They were sharp, jagged shards of the same mirror it was breaking. Blood welled instantly where the creature's hand scraped across the wooden floor. The clock changed. 5:43 a.m. Daniel thought of the warning, don't let it cross the glass. But it was too late. The creature's arm was through, elbow bending at an unnatural angle, skin stretching too tight against its bone. The room dimmed, shadows thickening even though the lamp was broken. He reached under the bed, groping wildly for something, anything, and his hand closed around the cold, iron base of the broken lamp. He yanked it out, gripping it like a weapon. The creature pushed further through. A shoulder. Then half of its faceless head. Daniel, the voice whispered again. This time, closer. More desperate. You cannot fight it with strength. You must give it something else. Something of yourself. What does that mean? He hissed. The voice answered only with silence. The creature's body twisted, forcing itself through the fracture like water squeezing through cracks. Daniel swung the lamp base hard, smashing it against the hand. The impact sent a shockwave up his arm, and the creature's jagged fingers splintered into shards that scattered across the floor like broken glass. But instead of weakening, it only grew louder. A low hum rattled the walls, vibrating the floor beneath his feet. The glass of the mirror bent forward, spilling ripples onto the carpet like water dripping from a bucket. The digits changed. 5:46 a.m. Daniel screamed into the silence, voice hoarse, "What do you want from me?" The answer came, distorted, half human and half something else. "Your place." By now, the mirror was almost gone, replaced by a yawning blackness that sucked the air from the room. Daniel's ears popped as if he were standing on the edge of a cliff in a storm. The creature dragged itself halfway into the room, its torso stretching, limbs snapping back into shape as if it were unfolding from a cage. Daniel pressed himself against the farthest wall, clutching the broken lamp base with trembling hands. The clock flickered again. 5:58 a.m. 2 minutes left. His heart slammed. He realized the voice hadn't returned. No instructions. No warning. Just him, and this thing, and the ticking seconds between life and something far worse. Then his phone lit up. A single word on the cracked screen. Exhale. His chest tightened. Exhale. That's what it wanted. That was how it found him before. Why would the message tell him to do it again? The creature lunged forward, fingers outstretched. The mirror behind it shattered fully, raining shards across the room like falling knives. 5 hours 59 minutes and 20 seconds. Daniel's lungs burned. His body trembled. He had no choice. He opened his mouth, and exhaled. The air burst from him like a storm. The shadows recoiled, the creature snapping back. As if struck. The blackness folded in on itself, collapsing toward the shattered mirror. A sound rose, not a scream, but something hollow, like 100 whispers sucked through a tunnel. The creature clawed at the air, desperate, but the exhale carried it back, dragging it into the glass. 5 hours 59 minutes and 55 seconds. The clock hummed. The mirror sealed itself with a final crack, leaving behind only his reflection, trembling, wild-eyed, but human. The clock flicked. 6 a.m. Silence. Daniel collapsed to the floor, chest heaving, the phone buzzing one last time. He picked it up, thumb shaking as he swiped across the screen. A message. No number. Just text. You survived. But tomorrow, it starts again. Thank you for tuning in, family. Love you. And see you in our next video.